Hey everyone, this is Jack G and these are my hobbies. I'm going to talk about 2 of the budget knives out of the 4 leading up to the giveaway. Thanks again for the subscribers. I'll talk about the Cricut Pilar. Yes, it's in pieces and I'll talk about why. And I'll talk about the Ontario Rat 2. And I wanted to talk about the comparisons, basically the 7 C's that I use when I determine whether or not to buy a knife and what criteria I would use to buy a knife. So the 7 C's of criteria. So the first one is comparison. And by that I mean, will it fit my needs? And do I have a specific purpose for the knife, like a EDC, a small gentleman's knife, or something a little bit more heavy duty, and things of that nature? You know, do I want to buy a knife for the rainy season? You know, is it corrosion resistant, etc.? So let's start with comparing knives just in general, size-wise, etc. So of course you have to use the Paramilitary 2, which is a fairly big knife, and we'll compare it to the Ontario Rat 2, just to give you an idea in size. The Rat 2 is not a very big knife, but it's not a very small knife either. The Pilar is obviously much smaller, and it's kind of hard to tell with all these pieces parts, but you can kind of tell the handle here and the blade here is a very like 2-ish inches, I believe. And this one, they do make a little bit bigger Pilar. So we'll come back to these parts. So that is the PM2, and we'll compare it to the Benchmade bug out. And part of the reason why I wanted to compare it to the bug out is because the Ontario Rat 2 is pretty close to the bug out, not the mini bug out, but this is not the mini bug out. It's about the same size as the bug out. I also kind of wanted to compare it to this one, just so you can see the acid etching, which I'll talk about as far as the size goes. And let's compare it to this big knife, the Super Freak. Why would I compare it to the Super Freak? It's not even in the same class, really. Clearly this steel, etc. And this is a big knife. This is a big, thick knife. It's weighty in hand. It's over 4 ounces. The reason I pulled this out is because it turns out that the Cricut weighs about the same amount because of the stainless steel as this big, large Super Freak. And that's something to consider. All right. So the next C after comparison is cost. So can I justify it? And do I find value in the cost of the knife? And the answer is, obviously these are budget knives, so we'll talk about the Pilar, and do I find value in a $25-ish knife like the Pilar? And clearly I could probably justify that for the price of maybe lunch. And the Ontario Rat 2, is it worth it's a little bit more money than, well, the Ontario Rat 2 actually was about, I think I bought it for about $27.50-ish, somewhere around there. And I think I paid close to $30 for the Pilar. So can I justify the quality? Yeah, solid steel. This is pretty, good quality. Obviously, the Ontario Rat 2 has been around a long time as well. They both have really good reviews. So can I justify the cost of these knives and will I get the value out of them? I think so, is the short answer. So we'll wait till we come to the conclusions though. The third C is customize. And what I mean by customize is, can I find a model that has various variations in steel or scales, etc., or can I customize it myself? So clearly with the Pilar, you can customize it, as I did here, and I talked about this one in my last video on anodizing, and you can see where I bought the titanium to replace the stainless steel scale here. And so I can customize it. This costs $35 though, so 35 plus 30-ish, you're in the $75 range. So now you're talking about, can you still justify the cost? So that's something to consider. Can I also customize it by trying to acid etch the blade steel? And this is my first attempt at acid etching, and I did a pretty poor job for a number of reasons. Not the least of which is I think that this steel, which we'll talk about in a second, doesn't take to anodizing very well. However, the Ontario Rat 2 is something that you can get in better steel, which we'll get to when we get to the blade itself, but I can customize this by acid etching, and you can get different scales with the Ontario Rat 2 from Blade HQ. So yes, that meets my customization. Now, the fourth criteria is coolness. Is it cool? Does it look cool? Does this blade look cool? Yep, it's a drop point. I love that. I love that it had this Ontario Rat 2 has the jimping that you can get up on. That looks pretty cool to me. It looks cool that it'll fit in hand, and it does. I have medium-sized glove hands, so this fits great in the hand. I'm not going to give like a full-on review of this. Nick Chabez has done a bunch of reviews, and this knife's been around forever, so I'm not going to go into the too many details. This one in particular, the lockup is a little aggressive, if you ask me. It's like, what is that? Maybe 70, 80%, something like that. But it still literally just flies out like a rocket, which I love and I will talk about. So clearly I can, the coolness factor of the sheep's foot, I believe, is pretty cool. And there you go. So the fifth criteria is, will it cut? So will it hold an edge? Can it come back to sharpen? So in this Pilar, it is the 8CR 13 MOV, which is the baseline for this knife at its cost. And this is the AUS 8 on the Ontario Rat 2. They're both decent steels. I cut a bunch of cardboard. It did okay. They came back to sharp with just a strop. So you do have to sharpen it more frequently than you would with a higher upgraded steel. So let's come to on the cutting and holding an edge. You're not going to hold a great edge with, AUS 8 or this 8CR 13 MOV, but it's okay, right? And it's a budget knife, so you get kind of what you expect. So could I spend more money though on an Ontario Rat 2 and get D2 steel, which is a much more improved steel, and I could still acid etch it if I wanted to? And you can. You'll spend, I want to say you'll spend probably, from Blade HQ, you can get the upgraded from the AUS 8 to D2, and I believe the scales are upgraded as well to carbon fiber. So you're going to get up to, or are they carbon fiber? I'm not sure. I forget on the price of these, but it's about $43 if you upgrade the steel. I actually don't mind these scales at all. So they do have carbon fiber, but they're like a G2 with a carbon fiber that I heard peels up a little bit on some people. So I actually like these scales here. I think they're like nylon. They're not that bad. Actually, I think they feel good in hand, and it doesn't add to the weight. So I actually like both the weight and these scales. So, but I would upgrade to get the D2 steel. And in fact, I might get one just for the D2 steel. Okay, so on the Pilar, you can also upgrade this knife. And as it turns out, Blade HQ has a really nice version of this with a little bit bigger. It's a 2.4 inch. Love the sheep's foot. It's great for cutting. And it's in S35VN, which is a huge improvement to this steel, obviously. And I believe it comes in carbon fiber, which takes care of the weight factor of this stainless steel, which I find kind of coming to the final C, the conclusions. Will this be part of my collection, and will it fit with the rest of my knives? So the Pilar, I took this apart because I wanted to customize it with the scales, and also because I wanted to acid etch this, and I'll probably redo this at some point in time. But a couple things that I learned when I took this apart. Number one, they use red Loctite. See this kind of white on there, and how well you can see this. Which is terrible. It's like super glue. And I couldn't remove this no matter how hard I tried with a couple different Weehaws opposing each other. And I need to get this apart to replace these scales. So that's why this is in parts. But it was a really good example to show you about customization and the pain that you go through. And also, these washers are like this nylon washers, and that's it. Whereas compared to the Ontario Rat 2, it does have nylon washers, but it also has phosphorus bronze washers, and that is why this thing literally deploys like a rocket. I mean, better than $100, $200 knives that I have, even some $300 knives, to be perfectly honest. And every time it is like a rocket. It has ambidextrous thumb studs. They're kind of oversized. They're easy to reach. This is not assisted, and yet this thing just flies out, and it's because of those washers. And for a $30 knife, this is a great first knife, a great starter knife, a great knife that you just throw in your car, your bag, and with an upgraded steel of D2. I love this knife. This is a great bargain. So in conclusion, I would get this knife all day, every day, even with the AUS-8, but I would upgrade it and spend a little bit more money, about twice as much money, and get the D2 steel personally. The Pilar, the conclusion, it's just too darn heavy for the size of this knife for me and as an EDC. So, you know, coming back to the C for carry, you know, would it bring me joy to carry this thing? No, it weighs as much as this Super Freak, which is huge. So if I'm going to take this kind of weight, you know, I'm going to go with something big in hand. And if I'm going to have something small, like in my pocket in the office and things like that, I wouldn't be carrying around this much weight. That's just me personally. So a couple things that I learned in taking this apart. Number one, I'm still having problems getting this apart because of the Loctite. I really hate it when manufacturers do that. Number two, it's just a little bit too heavy for me. I would upgrade to the carbon fiber and get the SV35N steel. Then I think I would be happy with this knife. So coming back to, can it be customized, or can I buy a different version of this knife? Yes, I could. And I would find value in an upgraded version of this. So, you know, that's partly what you're going to learn about budget knives, is you're going to get what you get what you pay for, right? So that's kind of all that I have to say about these. I'll be talking about the WE knives kite fin in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed the talk and the comparison of these two. The next two that I'll be doing, the budget knives, are two Kershaws. I'll do them similarly compared to each other, and then a final full my thoughts on if I were to rank these knives kind of 1 through 4, and then I will be doing the giveaway. Thanks again. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for my WE knives kite fin, which is a super cool knife. Mahalo.